Visit No One Likes Us Clothing for all your Millwall clobber. www.noonelikes.us.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Gary Rowett, and you're listening to the world famous Achtung Millwall.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to a post-Birmingham 0-0 edition of Achtung Mill. Joining me from his sick bed, it's good to have him back, Mr. Neil Fissler. How are you, Neil?
Mate, I'm back and ready to deal in reality, because you were pretty detached from reality when I joined that Spaces thing last week. Christ almighty. Talking about spending millions and Zion Fleming being potentially a Millwall legend and this, that and the other. Christ almighty. Yeah, no, well, I'm back to give everybody a dose of reality and to tell them the way it is.
He's got the flu and he's got the hump, listeners. You can tell, can't you?
I'm bored. I just don't do illness very well, and I've just done nothing for 10 days rather than just really lay in bed and watch bloody TV, and it was absolutely no good for your brain whatsoever.
There'll be listeners all around the world saying, miserable old sod. I'll get him. I'll put him on my podcast. There we are. We speak in the aftermath of a 0-0 draw last night. We were joking off air, listeners, that it'd be hard to get much out of that game last night. It's not good for a podcast. I mean, we've had two fixtures in succession, Neil, with virtually incident-free not from just from a Millwall point of view. Apart from the goal at Huddersfield, has been incident-free pretty much for 180 minutes now. But it was a tough watch last night, and I'm torn. I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. I'm torn between that being a good result and a bad performance, or was it a bad performance but a good result? I don't know. I mean, we are still placed quite nicely in the table. It's a very mediocre division, in my opinion. And Neil, you and I just mentioned there, joshing about Premier League runs and all the rest of it. I don't, as poor as it was to watch last night, I don't think that we are any worse than every other contender for the Premier League run at the moment. So I didn't see anything decisive that said we have no chance at all last night. We remain a team that struggles for goals. How did you see last night's game?
Mate, I'm pretty much the same as you, really. You go up there and they're a team in and around where we are. They've just ripped QPR apart at home, a team that isn't the worst in the league. So we go up there. We don't create very much. But I know we'll come on to it, so we won't spoil it too much. We don't create an awful lot. So really, is it a bad point to go up there? I think if we hadn't have lost at Huddersfield, and I can't really comment too much on Huddersfield because I was still not very well and I fell asleep at half time and didn't wake up. So I saw the first half when we were absolutely abject and awful, and then I missed the second half, so I can't really comment on it.
There's an image for the world to view. Neil fell asleep with the Huddersfield game flickering on his face. Nothing very much happened up there. I mean,
it's a strange one. It's should you really be grateful for the points?
Yeah.
Because they are a counter-attacking team. They do look to hit people on the counter. We just refuse to leave ourselves open, don't we? So
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I watched because Birmingham beat QPR, and that was on Sky, Neil, and they looked pretty lively. They did a good job on QPR. I think it was 2-0. I think, and then they won it. And I was expecting us to be really up against it last night. So I'm really going to try, for listeners around the world, anyone who watched it last night probably screaming at their speakers right now. I'm going to try and lay my hands on the positives, because I think the fact is, I mean, we had a few changes going into the game last night. We had the return of Murray Wallace, which probably helped on the defensive coordination. Cresswell starting, place of Hutchins, and Bennett was starting up front, and Vogel Sammer up as a kind of a central striker with Honeyman in midfield is one of the other changes. So we had a few fiddles about with the starting 11 after that very, very poor showing at Huddersfield, which I watched, and we just lacked. We really lacked spirit up there, Neil. I think that was the thing that I did see last night, and I didn't see at the John Smith Stadium was togetherness, spirit, and organisation. We saw that in abundance last night, and I think that's my main thing that I wanted to say that was positive out of last night, because it was a much better performance from Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, we had the Cray twins back in midfield, didn't we?
Cray twins.
Really,
Mitchell and Sav.
Oh yeah, they really. Yeah, you don't get a lot of change out of those two, do you? In the centre of midfield,
no, you don't. No,
and
you don't.
I think it's been a key to the way that we've improved, actually. The way that those two, but they're running the midfield, aren't they? They are the Cray twins in there, aren't they? Or the Richardsons, depending upon what.
Richardson's probably a better analogy. But no, I think Billy Mitchell, we've mentioned him a few times, much improved player. I mean, he really is coming on strong now.
Yeah, been absolutely magnificent all season. He's quite possibly our player of the year so far. And I don't think you could argue with that. You probably could. People arguing the phone box down at the Den, isn't there? But
there's always someone. No, I agree. I think he's on course for that. He's certainly maturing fast. He's now. It takes a bit of maturity, stature, whatever way you want to put it. You just need to become a leader in midfield, and I think he's headed in that direction. He's certainly not scared to talk in midfield. He's, we keep crying out for leadership on the field, and he might be more of a set by example, by what he does than maybe verbally, but he's certainly acquiring both from what I could see of it last night. And Saville, it's really great to see him back, Neil. For that reason, we just look much stronger in the tackle in midfield. And I'm just looking at my notes. There wasn't much to talk about in that first half, listeners. There really wasn't. I've got my notes normally occupy quite a bit of space when I'm watching it and writing down incidents and moments and faults, and it was like loads of nothing, and maybe a couple of early moments of brightness. There was a Fleming kind of crossing from the right very early on, and a couple of other moments. The highlight package, I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube, Neil, but I mean that's like there's a dearth of some of they're calling chances and incidents are shots miles over the bar and shots easily collected. And there's nothing in that first half. But I keep coming back to the point. I think Gary Rowett made this in his post-match interviews that Birmingham came off of a pretty good winning run at home. So we've gone to a team that were seen as bright prospects or going places, and we've kept them dead quiet. I know it's not much to report at 0-0 at half time, but I think that probably is a tribute to the organisation of the side last night. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what didn't help last night was the constant blowing of the whistle by the referee. He was almost afraid to let a game of football break out. He couldn't go. Yeah, he couldn't go a minute or 90 seconds without blowing his whistle for something or other. And there was just no flow. There was no pattern to the game. You weren't able to get into it because as soon as somebody bumped somebody, and I'm thinking of the Manchester United loanee, Hannibal, who I think we were linked with in the summer. Thank God we didn't sign him.
I didn't think much of him, Neil. Did you? I thought he looked very.
I thought he was awful, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
And got another lad, haven't they? Chung.
We muscled him. He got injured, didn't he? And when he was just starting to look bright, and I think he got clipped on a run through. I don't think intentionally, but he got muscled and he went off injured. Which was probably for the best from our point of view. It took another flair player out. But no, Hannibal, I thought surface and no substance for me. I didn't see anything out of him last night that made me want to believe he's going to go places.
No, it was just one of those games that the whistle went every minute or two, and there was just no flow to it. And I think referees, they can help games. If a game's poor, a referee can help a game by playing the advantage and just not getting involved. But I think he's a Premier League referee, isn't he?
I don't know.
I know on the commentary they said that it was the 3rd or 4th time that he'd refereed them this season. That can't be healthy, can it? Yeah, it's like it's like Sunday morning where the league can't appoint a referee, so the home side provides one. It's a bit like that.
I thought he was very poor. He's one of these refs that wanted to be a star of the show. Everything had to come back to him. I think I was watching the Max and Carl show, the commentary on what's it called, Mill TV, and they made the point that the referee was everything was kind of circling back to him. And it shouldn't be about a referee, Neil. It's the game should flow. He just wanted to blow his whistle. It really broke up play. It made it very, very tough watch. I found the second half better. I mean, we're not talking about very high bar here, listeners. The second half was better. There was more. I mean, we created more in the second half. I mean, my eye falls upon that massive breakout of defence for Tyler Bury in the 75th minute, I think it was, where the online crowd are all saying he should have passed inside to Vogelsammer. I'm not sure it was such an easy thing to do when I watched it again, Neil, on the YouTube replays this morning. At the ball inside, Tyler was on a break forward, and the goalkeeper spread himself quite well, in fairness to him. I think most strikers would have had a go there. The goalkeeper did well, I thought. Whether he should have, possible to pass inside, I don't know. Doesn't look so easy to me. What did you make of that moment?
I'm part of the online crowd.
You're part of the online crowd. Here they are. They're here. He should have passed inside, in your view.
I think he should have rolled it across.
Yeah.
And I think that Vogelslammer would have had an open goal. But would Ender have got back? You never know. Well, it's a strange one. You can't blame Tyler for wanting to. Well, he wanted the glory, really, didn't he? And
he wanted to score a goal. That's a good thing.
Yeah, you can't blame him. He's come on. He's created the chance from nothing himself. There's nobody else in our side that could have got into that position, because I think it was the sheer raw pace that took him that far. But I don't know. I'm going to stand by that. I think he should have rolled the ball in. He should have put the ball across. Okay, the keeper came out. The keeper made himself big. The keeper blocked. But should you have the awareness?
It was a massive moment. It was a massive. I mean, it was our one chance, wasn't it? That game. We didn't score. Probably we should have scored. I think he should have got it. But how much the goalkeeper made himself into spread himself well enough, and how much Tyler should have done. I don't know. You get fractions of seconds. I know that's what they're paid to do, Neil. But it was a turning point of the game. That was our moment. I think Birmingham had a chance. They put a ball across a little bit earlier. Actually, they put the goal, didn't they?
6-yard box, and I think it was Hogan. Did it hit his knee or something or other?
Away from him. Yeah, got away from him.
Jake Cooper did very well not to turn it into his own net, didn't he? I think he.
Well, we dodged a bullet there, I thought, because on another day that would have been a fairly straightforward opportunity. So maybe, I don't know, these things isn't there. I don't fully.
But how often is it that you can think back of a game last night and you recall the only two chances, and they were the only two real chances? I saw online this morning that they didn't have a shot on target and we had 3. I'm struggling to think of the other two, but
obviously, I think the other two. I think the other two are what they put on the YouTube, but you wouldn't notice them in real time. I think Billy had a go from just outside the penalty area that had no power.
Yeah,
The
goalkeeper
got taken.
low down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was that. The other one I can't think of. If there was another one, then it wouldn't have had much venom in it, and you wouldn't have taken any notice of it. Whether they class moments like that, I think, as shots. If it's on target, it's a shot. The ball's heading on the goal, it's a shot on target. But I mean, it was a 90 plus minutes of very little. And I suppose if you're going to play, did we play badly, or was that a Gary Rowett masterclass in blocking out a decent side at a tough place? Rainy night in Birmingham as well, Neil. Conditions didn't help us up there. So
reminds me of the game we played up there during lockdown. I think it was it a Saturday in winter, and there was no crowd there, and it was swirling, and
yeah,
it reminds me so much of that game. It's one of those places where I think I went up there a few years ago now, and I saw our first win up there since the 60s.
Right.
I think it was a 1-0 on the night match, and we don't ever seem to get. It's one of those grounds where we just don't get anything out of generally, do we? I know we got something late last season, didn't we?
It's not an enjoyable trip, is it? It's. I mean, it may be for those that are there for the race. It might be enjoyable. No, it's never a trip that I look forward to. I didn't go to it last night. Hats off, incidentally, whilst I think of it, Neil, to the 500 that did make it up there after a tough weekend to then go back to the M1 to Brum for a Wednesday night game is very, very creditable, and I take my hat off to everyone that did it. But no, it was a tough match. I mean, also I want to point the poor refereeing. I mean, we've knocked his inability to let the game flow. But I mean, there was almost like WWE wrestling going on at every corner. I mean, it was like a rugby match at times. He let that go when it was playing in front of him. I know they probably have to tolerate a certain amount, but blimey.
Yeah, we should actually have started singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" instead of "No One Like."
Well, Jake Cooper had a kind of like a scrummage going on there, and no cards, no nothing. It was just poor.
Yeah, what frustrates you is that he let everything go, yet somebody will do something on Saturday that will be totally innocuous, and the referee points to the penalty spot. I think that you reap what you sow. I think that Jake Cooper indulges in the dark arts, doesn't he? And whenever we're so it just there's no. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was no consistency, and it doesn't help when you've got the likes of that Hannibal and Chung and one or two other players that they had. They're just rolling around for the sheer fun of it, weren't they? If they got touched, and for a supposed hard man and midfield from Manchester United, I remember seeing him play. I think for Man United last season, he came on against Liverpool. I think he got booked after about 5 seconds for flying through the back of someone. He just doesn't
see him at that level, Neil. I can't. He looked like a poor Championship player last night. That Premier League, United, Liverpool. I wouldn't put him in that kind of category.
According to Batesy, I don't know what the yellow card would be for. He can't tackle, can't do anything. So.
He showed us nothing last night. I've picked a few comments from from Twitter last night just to run us along. Block 10 CBL says he can't believe there are fans actually happy with that performance. How did QPR go and get beat there? I don't know if I can agree with that, Block 10, because I think it was a good result and poor watch. I mean, it's tough. It was a tough view. I'm not going to sit here and say, Neil, that we were enthralled watching it, but I'm going around in circles, like I said already, about it being a good result but a bad watch. It was. I think we just dealt with a difficult night, and it was never going to be spectacular. I think Gary Rowett said that in his post match. So I didn't think it was a poor performance. Did you? I can't really pin that on it. It just wasn't exciting.
Yeah, I'll tell you what doesn't help is when you watch it, and I didn't understand why half the ground was
They've got problems. They've got stadium problems, haven't they? They've got
yeah. Well, they had all of those tarpaulins and no seats, and apparently they've got asbestos and basically underneath the stands it's turned into some kind of dumping ground. That there's all kinds of the ground's rotting and falling apart. Yeah, but that just summed up the game, really, didn't it? That we had to go to the.
They've ownership, or maybe they still have ownership issues, or they clearly have a failure of maintenance. Because, as you say, I mean, it's really striking when you watch it. The whole lower tier of the side opposite the cameras is tarpaulin. There were quite large stretches of the stadium that were tarpaulined off.
Yeah, and behind the goal. So I had a look online, and the local newspaper showed underneath the stands, and apparently it's right. But that just sums up. Yeah, that just summed up the evening, really, didn't it?
Well, it felt like you're playing. It felt like one of the lockdown games, actually, because for that reason, with it all tarpaulined off in that way.
Yeah, there was more atmosphere on the moon, I thought, than in that ground. But
there we are. I mean, it just strike me. We'll come back to the subject of ownership and chairman, and I don't know enough about Birmingham's situation to really comment, but clearly that's been a stadium that has not been looked after as it should be for many, many years. But I'm going to leave that there because I don't know enough about their backstory.
Yeah, I think ever since the Dildo brothers moved out and moved to the Olympic Stadium, so
yeah. No, it's gone to pot, that's for sure. I've got one here from Stan. He says, Stan LDN, he says that should have been 3 points. That's on for Bury, putting his ego before the team. I think that's a bit harsh. You want forwards to be selfish, but not stupid. I mean, you can't, if we had a proper captain, he gets a bollocking for that. I don't know. I mean, you want a striker that wants to have a go, and he should have scored, but selfish, not stupid. I don't know. I mean, most strikers would have had a go there, Neil. I think. I think it's harsh to say that's an ego thing. You want a striker that has a go and scores a goal, don't you? You can't have it both ways.
It's a one half dozen of another, isn't it? I think that you'll never agree fully with every. Yeah. I'm of the mind he could have rolled it in. There are other people that are of the mind that he did the right thing. There's no right and there's no wrong. It's an opinion. It's like an arsehole. Got one, haven't
That's
they?
right. We've all got one. If it goes in the net, then that was the correct thing to do. So, there it is.
So you can't coat him for it, and it's just one of those things. Next week he might roll it across, and Vogelslammer might put it into bloody homage. You never know.
No, that's right. You never know. One more, because I think we've made our point. Dan Wall, a win at home is a must on Saturday after those last 2 away games. Fair play to anyone going to the last 2 games, because he says it hasn't been good enough. I do agree. If we are going to make a run at the top 6 now, it's going to be built on home form. We do seem to struggle away from the den, and last night was better than Saturday. That's for sure, and it's not setting a very high level, but.
But we can't.
It's going to be built at the den, isn't it? If we are going to get into the top 6.
Yeah, but we can't rely on home form alone. I think we need a dose of reality here, and that we do need to pick up some results away from home. A draw on the scheme of things last night wouldn't have been so bad if we hadn't have failed to turn up at Huddersfield. Yeah, and then you'd be thinking, yeah, okay, probably not the best performance in the world, but if we'd have nicked to 1-0 at Huddersfield, it wouldn't have quite have been so bad. But when you go to places like Huddersfield and you don't turn up and you don't perform, and it just increases the pressure. I think Henshaw put a thing this morning that we've got the second worst away record in the division. I think only Rotherham have got a worse away record.
Yeah, I saw something. I think it was Jack Clark it was an away league table, purely on away games. I think we're second from bottom of the away league table, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, contrasting with the real league table where we're sitting in ninth, just 2 points off of sixth spot, which is what we're chasing. So no, away form remains a problem. I suppose you're going to need a striker. I mean, whether these cost money, don't they? Know that strikers that give them one chance, they take their one chance. Afobe is out injured at the moment. He's probably the closest we've got to that kind of striker, but even he's not that reliable, is he? So I think that's where we will struggle, possibly fall short unless we change it in January. It remains to be seen what level of investment the club are able to do in the window when it comes.
I don't think he's going to put the future of the club at stake, but I think you mentioned last week, or Harry mentioned last week, we've got to go for it. What does that mean? Does that mean you spend 5 million, 10 million that you haven't really got? And then if you don't make it, what happens? Do you end up then gambling on selling Fleming for more than that? And
I don't see us doing that level. I mean, I'm also
a good striker away from what we need, but those things, they don't grow on trees. And the way the Premier League is this year, you can't really see anybody loaning you one.
No.
So do you look in the lower divisions for one, and is there one in the lower divisions? And what do you do? I see there was a clamour for Bury to be sent out on loan in January. One or two people
don't buy
that.
I think he's making an impact at our level.
In that on Hoff this morning, and I don't agree with that because then what do you do? What do you end up with? Do you end up with another Luke Freeman who comes in and plays 15 minutes and gets injured? We need to strengthen, but do we have the kind of money to really, really strengthen this division? I think there's 10, 12 points between the top 6 and the bottom 3 or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, Watford's on 29 in 6th spot at the moment, 29 points, and Wigan Athletic are in the 3rd bottom spot on 19 points. So you're right, 10 points separate the promotion from the relegation zone. Which
you're thinking, we're not a bad team. We just can't perform away from home. And would you rather be a solid team in the Championship, or would you rather be a solid team in League One? Yeah.
Well, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? I mean, nobody
We're a solid Championship side at the minute. We are a solid Championship team. And are we getting a bit carried away with ourselves? I think we are getting a bit carried away with ourselves. We win 4 games and we start thinking we're the Manchester City of the Championship. We start dreaming of the Premier League, and when in reality, I don't think we're between probably about the 5th and 8th best team in this division. Do you agree? Or am I? Oh
no! I think you're right. I mean, I think you're. Of course, you're right. I mean, the January transfer window, we will never play at the level of investment required to generate a real, a striker that's going to really change it, unless we're going to find one from abroad, a bit like what we've done with Fleming and to some level with Vogelsammer. But a £5 million striker, which would be a huge investment by Mill standards, massive money, and may start to rock the good ship Millwall to a point where it starts to ship water. We don't want that. But equally, £5 million doesn't buy you a terribly impressive player in the modern game. It's sad but true. So I think you're right. As far as getting carried away is concerned, I mean, I think we had a good sequence of wins. It is in the Millwall blood to get a bit carried away. It is why we follow the club. Things are either the depths of despair or the heights of ecstasy. So I think following football should be about the excitement and the buzz. We've had a couple of poor poor performance at Huddersfield, a better one last night, but not particularly exciting. A lot will depend on how much energy and vim we can bring to the table Saturday against Hull City, who are also down near the bottom three. Here's my thing on the reality check, because you're making good points, Neil. I think the reality is, as we've said, and it's I don't want to make this into a cliche, but this is a division where 10 points separates the success from the failure. So although that has a bad quality in the sense that this is what's that expression? The bang average league, bang average. It also means that we have every chance of being near the action come May. I think there's no reason why, if we continue to grind away, and it won't always be pretty, I accept that, but there's no reason why we can't be near the top six. Whether we get there or not is going to be another matter, but I think that the very averageness of this league means that we have as much chance as will anyone else, and we probably would have had for some time, because there are no standout sides. So much remains to be seen.
This league is littered with teams that have gone for it. Yeah, they've spent money that they can't afford, and then they end up paying for it. Lobby cards on the table. I'd rather we didn't go for it. We're still in the Championship for the next 2 or 3 years, as opposed to going for it, failing, and then we struggle.
We're back playing Fleetwood or Forest Green Rovers, aren't we? In that scenario, if that don't work out.
Strange old one. Do you organically? Oh God, I sound like
you've gone woke. You've gone new age and woke on me.
Yeah, but do you organically grow? And I don't know. But it's one that's conflicted, because we are a good striker away from being a really good team, but they don't grow on trees, and they cost an awful lot of money. And
no, they don't. Well, big game Saturday. I think we've probably explored last night's result. I think we've done quite well with that game last night, because in the immediate aftermath, I must admit, I thought to myself, I don't know how long I can talk to Neil today, but we've done quite well. We sit ninth, listeners, as we'll close this section of the show, just 2 points behind Watford in sixth. 27, and they're on 29. So next up, Hull City this coming Saturday. We're going to take a short break, and we'll just come back after the adverts just to discuss a couple of items that I've picked up in and around the Mill scene. So I'll be right back after these messages.
Achtung, Millwall.
Hello listeners, Mike Hayden here after that 0-0 draw at St Andrews. This will be a short voice note. Abysmal first half. Conditions look pretty poor up there. Pretty much a rugby match in some respects. Not helped by the referee constantly blowing up for the smallest little niggles. There wasn't really anything to report. I can't even remember. I think maybe a couple of shots off target, but Birmingham seemingly playing a bit like an away side, trying to catch us on the break a bit when we had more of the ball. Nothing really to report in that first half. Second half opened up a little bit. I think we went for it a bit more. But I think the problem is that our kind of tactic at the moment going forward a lot of the time is very direct in nature, and when a team can deal with that, we struggle to create chances. I don't think Cooper really won a header all day in the opposition's half, and I think that basically hampered our chances as we had that sort of one-dimensional way of going forward. But I mean, the gilt-edged chance, of course, was Bury's. That's the difference. Sometimes when you get few chances away from home, you take that. And we'd have won that 1-0 easily, because I think defensively we were very sound. I mean, they didn't do a lot going forward, Birmingham. Bury did so well to skip away from that defender and then in on goal. But I mean, someone said it was difficult to square it, but I mean, surely if you get your head up there, it was a tap in for Vogelsammer, and that was really the gilt-edged chance. I think when we missed that chance, I just knew it was going to be 0-0. So yeah, it was disappointing because I thought we were the better side in the second half. You know, we had a few kind of chances. We knocked the ball around quite nicely, but yeah, just I suppose didn't create enough chances to win the game, which was a shame. So yeah, pretty drab away performance. You know, clean sheet and 0-0. Not the end of the world. But I think, you know, we need to get back to winning ways on Saturday against Hull, who have recently announced a new manager, which is never good. But anyway, we'll see. But yeah, fingers crossed for 3 points on Saturday. Come on, you Lions.
Achtung, Achtung, Christmas is a-coming, dear listeners. And to quote Richard Chaplow, 26 appearances, 9 sub, 1 goal. As he once said, you cannot beat a good board game. And we've got a good board game for you here. Achtung has teamed up with a tremendous football trivial pursuit style game called Pundit. You can follow Pundit at Pundit Games on Twitter. And it's a really nice little game, actually. It's a board game. It consists of football trivia questions, easy and hard. Some of the hard ones are very, very hard. And you move along a football pitch to score goals against your opponent. It will suit the football head in your life, dear listeners. Great way to pass a Christmas afternoon. You can get a 10% discount if you visit punditgames.co.uk. That's PUNDITGAMES, punditgames.co.uk. You get a 10% discount at checkout with the code LIONS in capital letters. LIONS, capital letters. And every sale will benefit the Lions Food Hub. What a better way to pass your Christmas than to enjoy a good football trivia game and to know you're doing good at the same time. So get on it. punditgames.co.uk.
Achtung, Millwall.
Welcome back to the show, listeners. Neil, a very strange little story that I saw the other day. Sunderland have agreed with the EFL that they're able to ban vapes and coins in the away sections only at the Stadium of Lights. They've had some incidents. I'm going to guess stuff being chucked on the pitch from the away sections, but they're not banning it for the home fans, which is interesting. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of questions get raised on the human rights questions for football fans banning such everyday items as coins. Vapes you could talk about that, whether they're potentially missiles or not, I don't know. But coins, you need them to spend money. I don't know. You get on if you're not allowed to have coins in your pocket. It's a sign of the, what's the word? I don't want to use the word authoritarian attitude, but the idea that football fans are some kind of other species that you can treat how you like, and it fits in with that agenda. And I don't like to say that because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's part of this general kind of treatment of football fans as second-class citizens. Almost, it strikes me.
Yeah, but it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, we only have to switch on the news and see what these Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion zealots doing in and around London, and they can almost act with impunity and do as they like. But if you're a football fan, you can't carry £2 coins into a football ground without being. You can't. Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think last week I went shopping last Friday, and it's the first time I've actually physically used cash because
same here. I mean, I had some coins the other day. What are you going to do with these? Yeah.
And it's the first time I've actually used pound coins in a long time, and that was because I went to Aldi, and you need them for the trolleys, don't you?
Shopping trolley.
So I don't really take coins or notes out with me anymore. It's just one of those things where you pay for it on your phone, you pay for it with your
card or phone. Yeah, I mean, so it's done now, isn't it?
But it just seems to me, I don't know, it's a step too far, isn't it? It's Big Brother. I think in any other walk of life, if you to a cinema and you were told, right, you can't take a vape pen, and yeah, well, I guess they can be used as missiles. They're about a pen size, and I should imagine you could get
there's
quite
loads of things you can use as missiles. There's a million and one things if you want to. I mean, I I'll lay my cards on the table. I mean, you're right. I mean, coins are a fading, like newspapers are a fading thing of the past, but they still exist. They're still legal tender. You're still entitled to have them as you walk along the road leading up to the stadium and light. But what you can't do, apparently, is take them into the football ground. The vapes don't bother me because I don't smoke, but it's a principle here, isn't it? That's if these things are legally purchasable outside, which they are, then to ban them for one specific section of the ground just seems draconian to me. And it's also always comes back to this principle that you punish the majority for the actions of the minority, which there's something that seems very very unfair, deeply unfair about.
Yeah, there's a knee-jerk to something, I think. Somebody somewhere who doesn't understand football. Yeah, well, I don't smoke. The chances of me carrying a coin, if I can buy a program and buy a pie and a whatever with a contactless payment, I'm probably going to do it.
I mean, it's worth knowing, listeners. I'm reading this out because we play Sunderland just before the World Cup break ends. We've got the away fixture on World Cup final, don't we? 12:30 kickoff in Sunderland. So if you are going to get yourself along to the game, don't expect to take your coins or your vapes in there because they'll want them off you. Principles behind it, there's a whole debate on that front, and you find yourself, very quickly going into debates that are quite deep, to be honest. But if you tolerate this, as a song says this, and they tolerate this, you'll be next, or children be next. These things are bit by bit taking away basic everyday things, freedoms, if you want, that we take for granted. So anyway, there we are. They're probably entitled to do it legally because so many of these things often are. Sunderland banned vapes and coins, so just bear that in mind if you're going to go up there for the away match on December the 3rd, I think it is.
Somebody's going to try and take something off somebody going into the ground, and there's going to be a kerfuffle, and somebody's going to pick up a banning order for something that's easily avoidable. Yeah. It creates a situation which... Yeah, well, I do think some of it is to do with... Some of it will be to do because they want to create confrontation. And they're picking on the right set of fans to create confrontation, aren't they? We're not backwards in coming forwards.
No, hardly. No.
Well, I don't think any other walk of society... people would be up in arms over this, but because it's affecting football fans, we're just seen as the soft target, aren't we? And
it panders to a certain image, doesn't it? I mean, I haven't got the articles to hand, listeners, so I'm not gonna be able to quote them. But I think someone did a comparison of the Glastonbury Music Festival with an equivalent. A couple of 100,000 people go there, but if you take a Wembley event, the numbers of arrests at Glastonbury were quite disproportionately larger than what you might get at an average England game or an average fixture. There are some high-profile situations where people get off their nuts and do stupid things, but then that's a public order question that you gear up to certain situations. They do this all the time. They judge marches and protests, don't they?
Yeah, well, you look at the Notting Hill Carnival, where there's a stabbing. Yeah, but there's God knows how many stabbings and
muggings and whatever. It goes on, doesn't it? And drug dealing and all sorts. But it's seen as part of the risk of running an event of that scale, which in football has this demonic kind of quality that. It's a stereotype, I think, but there we are. How do we change that? I don't know. Beyond the scope of this show to change it, but worth knowing if you're going up there, Sunderland. Just to close us, Neil, I was surprised and struck by an obituary notice that the club put out on the official website concerning the sad passing of Peter de Savary, who was relatively briefly chairman in the 2000 mid 2004-5ish season, I think it was. A flamboyant character and quite a remarkable person, Neil. I'd missed this. I hadn't seen it at all. It just popped up on the club website the other day.
Yeah, it was. You would think anybody of my age and maybe your age, you will remember Peter de Savary, I think, purely because didn't he own Land's End and John O'Groats at one stage?
He owned Land's End, John O'Groats, yeah, and he was into yachting. He came to the fore, I think, in the 1980s. He was like it's like one of the business superstars, and was he involved in the America's Cup? I can't remember where it was. It was the Isle of Wight, or might have been in the Caribbean, but he was he'd don't field a yacht team, do you? You set sail with a yacht team to try and win the America's Cup for Great Britain, and that's where he first came to the public attention. Then he became this flamboyant entrepreneurial businessman who owned Land's End and John O'Groats at the opposite end of the country, and he was quite a character. He's quite a character.
Yeah, who died on a houseboat or something. So yeah. I think it was life. But something that struck me was the Adrian Wisson, Kitman.
Yeah.
Made a very good point on Twitter, and he said he actually worked for Peter when he was chairman. He drove him around for his Millwall meetings in his Bentley. He says, I met our current chairman, John Berylson, for the first time during that time. So his time at Millwall was for nothing. And I think if Peter de Savary's remembered for one thing, and if he's introduced Millwall to John Berylson, arguably one of our best chairmen, I'd quite like to do a show during the World Cup where we discuss all of our chairmen.
That would be a good idea. Yeah,
and we'll try and rank our chairman. But John Wilson, probably one of our best chairmen. If Peter de Savary has introduced him to Millwall, well then, I think we owe Peter de Savary a huge round of applause on Saturday. And even though he wasn't around for too long, he was a Millwall chairman. I do remember him. Do you remember him appearing on the pitch? I think it was a midweek evening game.
Yeah, it was a midweek game, yeah.
He appeared in a Millwall shirt and gave us this rousing speech.
He promised the Premier League in 5 years. This would have been 2005. The Premier League, that's one of the top 15 clubs in the country we're going to become. And I mean, it was high comedy, and it went down a storm one night. And when Peter de Savary first came to the club, this was in the aftermath of Theo Pathetis, which was one of the great high points. I mean, obviously Theo took us from administration to the cup final, and into Europe as a consequence of that. So that was quite a storyline. And Theo had a season where he wanted to get away from the Den, and he wasn't chairman officially, but he was chairman in reality. We had that strange 1 month period where Jeff Burnage was chairman, and then I think Theo basically pulled the plug on that experiment, shall we say. And Peter de Savary came to us with a reputation for being a property developer. So initially, and I was just saying this off air to Neil before we started recording, initially there was a wave of fear as to what this meant for the club, because the 2005-6 season, which is when he arrived, was very tumultuous. We were kind of spinning. We had manager upon manager. I think we finished up about 5 or 6 managers that season. And Peter de Savary came in as chairman with this. He'd made his money developing marinas and the Land's End and John O'Groats thing. And I think there was just a real fear of the unknown, I think, looking back at it, that he would be a developer who would look to move us away from the Den and build on it. I mean, you know, these conversations never go away really now, do they? But certainly there was a fear that that's what he was going to do.
Yeah, we had a hotel down this way.
Yeah.
As well, somewhere in Devon, and I think he took the players down.
That's right.
For
yeah,
one of those activity hotels, not one of those activity hotels.
No, it was like a team building, that kind of thing. It was where you did some I don't know, cross country stuff and things, you know.
Yeah, and bowls, indoor bowls, and I think there were badminton courts and all kinds of things going on. Yeah, but I think it was a strange time in club history. I think we had that Graham Lacey Ferguson knocking around at the same time, didn't we?
Well, Graham Ferguson Lacey, who was like another villain figure. I mean, I just want to say to listeners, because I when Peter de Savary first came to the club, I must admit I regarded him as a villain, you know, as a possible villain, because no one really knew what his intentions might be for the club.
A rolling, as they say, on the price of football.
Yeah, I mean, as I look back at it now, Neil, I mean, I think, you know, both in sports generally, I mean, I include rugby and I include football and I include cricket to some level. There are some real villains, some people with, you know, that have really decided to use sport as a money making venture. And I think looking back now, Peter de Savary looks quite an innocent character compared with what we've seen across football, certainly top level football ever since. And he looks quite a mild figure looking back at it. But at the time, I think we were all very fearful. And Graham Ferguson Lacey, who became a shareholder, was linked to Peter de Savary because he was the person who bought Land's End from Peter. He was one of these entrepreneurs that would achieve heights and then crash down, you know. And I think he went for a phase in the 1990s where Land's End became a loss-making thing, and he had to sell up, and he sold it to Graham Ferguson Lacey, who was another very odd character, but another show for him, I think. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say on this show, rest in peace, Peter de Savary, because although I regarded you as a villain when I actually met him. I remember sitting in the chairman's room. In my impetuous youth, I'd put some leaflets together, Neil, and I was getting people to hand out leaflets protesting at the, you know, no sale of the Den and all this kind of thing. And de Savary got poor old Ken Brown. Do you remember him? He was chief exec. Ken Brown came out to try and find me and got me to come in to meet de Savary in the chairman's room. A very strange experience. I'll tell everyone about that another day. But
food and drink like that you got up there, Nick?
I didn't get any food. he was in. I think he saw me as some kind of I don't know what I was like a militant or some sort. You know, someone that was going to upset the apple cart. I'm far from a militant. And anyway, he was two things really struck me. One was he had a vague West Country burr to his voice, which I didn't expect. I think he came from Gloucester or somewhere like that, and he had a bit of a burr to the voice. So I wasn't expecting to hear that. I don't know why that made an impression on me. He had monogrammed cuffs. He had PDS on his cuffs, and he was making me sit there to read his personal statement that was put in the programme. And as he was reading, he was pointing at the words, like, you know, like when you kind of like reading like that, you know, where you run your finger across the line. I thought these are three strange things that still live with me even to this day. I thought really odd. But there we are. Peter de Savary, he's only with us for about a season, then he became a shareholder, and John Barrison thankfully took over, and long may that continue. Just want to close with there's a quote from Peter de Savary from Wikipedia. He's talking about his extravagance. He was known for spending money, and he quoted Andrew Carnegie, who said, to die rich is to die disgraced. In other words, spend your money because that's what it's for, not for accumulation. Quite a character. R.I.P. PDS, Peter de Savary. I think we've reached the end of the show, Neil.
You've done quite well to get nearly an hour out of this. Eke an hour out, 0-0 draw, somebody dying, give a ban on call.
I thought we'd struggle to get 20 minutes. I mean, if I can get 20 minutes out of this, then I'll call it a day there. We're going to close the show with a couple of voicemails. John Rankin, well done, John Rankin, for going up to the St Andrews last night, and one from Michael Avery. Huge thank you for coming from your sick bed today. Neil Fishler, good to have you back, mate.
Yeah, no, it keeps you in touch, doesn't it? Keeps you alive, and it means you're not just watching YouTube feeling miserable.
There we are. What better advertisement for the show can there be than that? It stops you from looking at banal YouTube recordings. Big thank you, Neil. Thank you to you too, listeners, for tuning in. We'll be back after the Saturday game. Until the next edition of Achtung Millwall, it's from Neil and myself. It's bye for now.
Hello?
Hi Nick, John Rankin here, just calling in with a post-match report the day after the 0-0 game up at Birmingham, St Andrews. I don't know if you're going to use this, but we got in very late last night, so I was unable to leave a voicemail message for you. Yeah, so listen, it looked probably a bit dreadful on the TV, but at the ground itself, it was quite a good result, really. I mean, Birmingham are just having a little uptick in form. They beat QPR before this game, and I was quite happy with our performance, really. Defensively, we looked a lot better than against Huddersfield. Our back four played well, and of course it's a slightly weakened back four as well. We've got no Sean Hutchinson in that lineup, and the back four kept its shape, played quite well. Danny Mack had a better game than he had against Huddersfield. He was out of position quite a bit against Huddersfield. The referee for the match yesterday, we got absolutely nothing out of him. He was a poor referee, actually. He was, every time a Birmingham City player went down, he was blowing his whistle and giving them a free kick. Not the case for us, I'm afraid. We had a clear penalty against for Vogelsammer, and Jake Cooper was just being fouled constantly by 2 or 3 people, and we need to work on that, I think, because against Sheffield last year we were able to protect him a little bit to let him go up to get a header. But in this game, he had 2 or 3 guys around him just barging him and putting him down, and he hit the deck at one point. So something to work on there. I thought overall everyone played well. The midfield played well. Vogelsammer in his new position in the middle of the park. There's potential there. Zian Fleming had a quiet game. He did a couple of things. But I think, he's still kind of finding his feet on exactly where to play. I think, to be honest, Rowett needs to settle things down now and start trying to pick the same type of players each week, so that they learn how to play just a little bit more fluidly in the last sort of part of the pitch, really. But overall, it was a good performance. Tyler Bury created a lovely chance. He's so quick and alert, and it's such a shame that he took a couple of touches before he got his shot off. But we were certain that was going to be a goal, and he just delayed it a little bit. And that would have been a lovely icing on the cake, because it was that kind of match where, to be honest, it only ever looked like it had one goal in it. And I think the first team that scored would have won that game. So overall, a much better performance away from home than against Huddersfield. It was a long old trip up to St Andrews. The weather and the traffic was really poor, but we got there in the end, and we got back, and it was a gritty, solid performance, and I think a very valuable point away from home. So on to Hull on Saturday. Come on, you Lions.
Well, dear listener, so this is my voice note, and you could probably tell from the background noise I'm enjoying the British weather. Last night's game, what can we make of it? In truth, not a lot, really. I'm recording this the next day because I didn't know what to say last night. I mean, it wasn't wasn't exactly exciting. I mean, Gary Rowett, that's probably his type of game. No, I jest, but it was very much a sort of job done. You want to go away and not lose. Yeah, you maybe want to win, but you don't want to lose. So it's the old cliche, you know, if you're at the top of the table or near the top of the table, which we are, in and around those playoffs, you want to get positive results. So away draws and home wins is what you want. So now we need to back this up with a good performance on Saturday. Positives to take is a clean sheet away at a place up until recently, over the last few years, we've always struggled at. Birmingham have always been historically a team who's always tended to do well against us, so a clean sheet's always good. Billy Mitchell had another good game, as he did. The defence wasn't overly tested from what I made. You know, there's a few sort of like half chances here and there, but nothing really that the keepers had to do. And we came close with a shot at the end. A lot of people saying that it could have been squared. I'll say at the end later on, but it could have been squared. But I personally think the shot might have been a better idea. Obviously, those camera angles on the red button aren't necessarily the best, so we don't know if the pass was on or not. It's very easy to sit on our armchairs indoors, like I did, and criticise when you can't see the correct angles. But fair play to those who travelled away. You know, the St Andrews, it seemed a bit flat last night, atmosphere-wise, around the ground. All you could hear on the TV was Millwall. And to be fair, the commentators even did their best to try and get something in the game, you know, talking about the fans, that no one likes us chanting and all that. So, positives to take again. We didn't lose. We got the draw. We roll on to Hull City. How on your lines?
Achtung, Millwall.